Hey, Crawlspace listeners. The following audio was recorded on a Facebook Live video this afternoon, being Wednesday, April 25th, the day the Golden State Killer was caught. And so we talked to Mike Morford of the Criminology podcast and TrueCrimeGuy.com, and he's currently doing a podcast on the Golden State Killer. So check it out. It's about 27 minutes of interview and chat about the Golden State Killer. So 3 things you should do. 1, subscribe to Criminology. 2, order and read I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara about this case. And 3, come see us at CrimeCon in Nashville on May 5th. We are going to be talking more Golden State Killer with Billy Jensen and Paul Haynes, who both helped work on the book and finish it after Michelle's passing. So if you are going to CrimeCon, check us out. We're doing a live podcast at 4:45 p.m. on Saturday, May 5th. So please follow us on Twitter. We're on Instagram and Facebook as well. Thank you.
Hello, Facebook. What is up? We are Crawlspace. I am Tim. That's Lance. That's Chloe.
Hey.
What's up? We're here in the Crawlspace studios talking true crime.
We are fired up because we had our plans derailed happily by the news early this morning, and we have Mike Morford here with us. I think he deserves to at least be the first one on this show to make this announcement. So welcome, Mike.
Welcome, Mike Morford of the Criminology podcast and TrueCrimeGuy.com.
Hey, guys.
Tell us what happened today.
Well, a little bit of news. The Golden State Killer, East Area Rapist, was arrested. It happened overnight, and, they have DNA, which positively links them, so it's a pretty solid case, and it's kind of mind-blowing to wake up today and not have, some of the questions I had yesterday.
So many questions and so many different feelings about it. Just a little bit of news. One of the most prolific serial killers and rapists in American history
Has now been captured.
This is the 40th anniversary of his first victim. Is that accurate?
It's the 41st. It's coming up on 41 years. Last year, 2016 actually was 40 years. So it's actually coming up on 42 years.
So you do the podcast called Criminology, and in season 2 of Criminology, you talk about the Golden State Killer or East Area Rapist or original Night Stalker. Those are all of his monikers, perhaps in addition to others. So this one hits really close to home for you, right? I mean, you're currently still releasing episodes about this guy.
Yeah, we actually recorded episode 10 last night, and while we're recording, I'm getting these texts, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, oh, this is somebody else contacting me saying that the case has been solved, and I'm like, okay, I'll just wait till we're done recording, and then I'll check it out. And as soon as we got done recording, I checked it out. Within 10 minutes, I knew it was true, and I was like, wow, that's, it's kind of weird because we're 10 episodes into 12 episode season, so now we're like, how do we segue into this and finish what we wanted to do and not miss any part of the story, but still get this information out there? So that's what we're sort of wrestling with right now.
So, okay, take us through those minutes then. So you saw a message that this case might have been solved, and you kind of just ignored it and finished the podcast. And then you said afterwards it took you about 10 minutes to find out that it was real. Take us through that. What happened? What were the steps you went to confirm that was real?
Well, the first message I got was from somebody that I don't really know very well, and I sort of, I didn't want to say I didn't trust them, but there were other people that I wanted to check with first before I gave that any consideration. And then, I reached out to one good contact that I have, and when I say, hey, did you guys catch a break? He'll usually say no. But this response was a little bit different. It was more of a smiley face, so to speak, response. So that right away caught my attention. Then a short time later, I checked with somebody else that I knew, and they gave me a little nugget of information. And then, minutes later, I'm talking to one of the family members of one of the victims, and we're sort of just dazed talking to each other like, I can't believe this is over. There's still a long ways to go because you have the penalty phase and trial and all the other stuff that goes along with it. But at least now there's a name and a face to this guy. So it's been kind of weird. It's been a weird 12 hours, I guess.
And what is the name?
It is Joseph. Oh, geez, I forget now. Joseph DeAngelo. I've only said it and wrote it probably 1,000 times today.
So Joseph.
But he's a 72-year-old guy from Sacramento County. He's kind of a mystery to some of us because a lot of people have a huge list of names of potential people that might be involved, and this guy, from what I can gather, wasn't on anybody's radar.
Okay, yeah, that was my next question. Was this a name that you had heard that had come up in your work?
Yeah, this is a name I hadn't heard at all.
Wow.
And there's some speculation out there about what he did. I don't really, know for sure about his history of jobs and things like that. But there's some information out there that he might have been a police officer at one time. And then there's the Visalia ransacker, which is a case that a lot of people thought was, the same offender in Visalia, California, prior to the East Area Rapist. And there's some evidence that he was also that offender. So this is going to just open up even more. I think in the end, it's going to be safe to say this guy is probably the biggest serial offender in U.S. history. I think that's where we're going to wind up.
Well, easily. What's his? What are the stats on him as far as the murders and the rape count?
Well, they have him down for 12 murders, 50 rapes. If he is the Visalia ransacker, then there's attempted murder of a police officer. There's a murder of a college professor, and he committed 100 home burglaries in that town. And these are just what we know of. I think there's going to be a lot more murder victims and rape victims out there that maybe will never be linked.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think he's just going to go down as probably the biggest serial offender in history.
Okay, and so there's a press conference that's going to start in about 20 minutes out of Sacramento. The prosecutor's office. So some people in the Facebook Live chat are asking. Patrick says there needs to be more oversight over public servants and government employees. The fact is, this guy was a cop for 6 years, Mike. What gives?
Yeah, it's a lot of people speculate that maybe he was a cop and maybe he had some kind of training or inside information. I don't know how much of that's going to turn out to be true. That's why I can't really comment on how much of that is accurate until we get all the facts. But from what I read, it seems like he was kicked out after shoplifting a couple items and kicked off the force due to that. And then after that, I don't know what he did. That's something that I'm sure more information will come out, and over the next days and weeks, I'm sure a lot of stuff will come out about the guy. But some interesting things. This case sort of stalled in 1981. He was offending and raping and murdering steadily up until 1981, and then he stopped. And then in 1986, he came out for one more murder and rape, and then he disappeared after that forever. Well, those 2 years, 1981 and 1986, were the 2 years that two of his children were born in. So who knows if that's going to have some kind of contributing factor in it.
I want to go back real quick to the things that he stole. You said he was left the force because of shoplifting. Even what he stole was significant, right?
Yeah, the one of the things was kind of odd was dog repellent. And I don't even know what that is, to be honest with you. It sounds like something that the East Area Rapist could use if it's something that, hey, I don't want this dog coming up to me while I'm doing an attack. I want to keep him away. Or his scent. Maybe he was worried about his scent being tracked after the crimes, which they did use bloodhounds to track the East Area Rapist crimes. So maybe this was his way of trying to cover his scent to to give himself some extra time or some kind of protection.
Yeah, we were curious about the dog repellent too when we read about it, because it was something we didn't know about either. I have a cat at home, and I have cat repellent spray that is used to spray on furniture to make it so they don't want to go on it. So we were thinking maybe he was using dog repellent spray, which is usually like citrus scented, to make dogs not want to jump on you. So maybe he was concerned about a family dog attacking him, which had happened in the past.
Yeah, and he had abused some dogs too. He stabbed one, as Melissa mentions here in the chat room.
Yeah, there were instances when, at different scenes, dogs would be attacked or bludgeoned, stabbed. Going all the way to Sacramento County, in some of the early crimes, there was a spree of dog bludgeonings. And again, could that be somebody different? It may be, but what they say.
Yeah, probably not.
A lot of times it starts out as a serial killer. They're killing animals to get started.
Yeah, and once if anyone out there, first of all, thank you for joining us on this Facebook Live. But if anybody out there has not read "I'll Be Gone in the Dark" by Michelle McNamara, it's such an amazing book. And looking back on it now and looking at this guy's history, things just start falling into place. Like the fact that he, was seen military crawling towards one of the homes, and this guy was in the military. He was in the Navy and in Vietnam. And, he was a cop for 6 years. And you just said it never occurred to us on our end that he might have bought dog repellent to throw his scent off of any dogs that the police were employing to track him. That, these things, all of a sudden, these things are just like starting to click.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, there'll be some things where people go, exactly, that's what I was thinking and that's what we suspected. But I think there's going to be a lot of things that people didn't expect that are going to come to light. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next, several weeks, months, whatever it takes to get to a trial, and see what comes out from that.
As Brian in the chat room says, I wonder if dog repellent could account for some of the odd odor being reported by some victims. And that was exactly where my head went too, Brian. Yeah, what do you think about that, Morph?
Yeah, some of the cases there were odd scents reported by the people, sour smells, things like that. At a couple crime scenes where the dogs were tracking this guy, they acted very erratically, and they couldn't really explain why they were acting that way. A couple theories were put forward that it's possibly because he had a disease or he was a drug user, but who knows, maybe that dog repellent is something that could come into play in causing that behavior in the dogs.
Okay, so just to reset here real quick, everybody, the Golden State Killer has been arrested, and his name is Joseph James DeAngelo.
And he was arrested on 2 warrants for murder out of Vallejo County, right, Mike?
And Ventura County.
I'm so sorry. Ventura County.
And guys, we're here on Facebook Live, and I don't want to stoop to the level of saying that Joseph James DeAngelo has a really small dick, but serial killer Joseph James DeAngelo has a really small dick.
Yeah, that's one of the common traits that most people describe with him. So, on top of everything else he's got to deal with, he's got that out there too.
Yeah, I can't wait for the memes on that one. And I don't feel bad. This guy deserves everything that's coming to him.
And we talk
a couple
about
people said that in court he should be forced to pull down his pants and show
the
evidence.
Dude, yeah, I mean,
humiliate him.
Seriously, you set yourself up for that. If one of your identifying characteristics is a thin, small penis, and that's how people are going to identify you, sorry, dude.
Just again to recap, the Golden State Killer, Joseph James DeAngelo, has been arrested, and he has a really small dick.
Yep. Probably a micro penis.
But
Google it.
Let's not take the
dwell.
low-hanging fruit here and just dwell on this. So let's move on, guys.
No.
Let's. So I actually want to get back to if you knew anything about the warrants that led to this arrest. That there were 2 warrants that they had enough sufficient evidence to arrest him on based for murder. Do you know anything about like the details of those?
Well, I know. I'm trying to think of what I can say without saying too much that I shouldn't be saying, but I know they've known about this guy for some time. I don't know if that means days or weeks, but I know over the past week they've been really paying attention to him, and I think once they tested DNA and got a 100% match, they didn't waste any time in moving in and taking him down. And I still don't even know how they did it, if they just knocked on his door or they waited for him to come outside. I'm not sure how that went down. I'm sure they'll talk about that at the press conference, hopefully. But from what I've heard, it was a tipster that gave them information about this guy. Some of the rumors are that it was one of his own kids. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But that's just a rumor going around out there.
Okay, so that brings me to that point there. So he's this guy has 2 kids allegedly, and a wife or an ex-wife. I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure if she's a wife or an ex-wife, but I know he's got, I think, 3 kids, if I'm not mistaken, and 2 of them I know for sure were born in that 1981 and 1986 time frame when he killed in 1981 and then again in 1986. So that's kind of, the timing just seems interesting. But then there's so many different avenues that will open up now, because in some of his crimes down in Southern California, for example, in Santa Barbara especially, he's suspected of burglarizing some homes in the area, and he was witnessed with a young female along with him. So that opens up the possibility, did this guy have an accomplice, a female accomplice? Was it, I don't want to say his wife. I don't know what their marital situation is, but if it is an accomplice, who is it? So there's some things like that need to be looked into a little bit further.
And I hope in subsequent and upcoming proceedings, that's not forgotten, that there are reports of a potential female accomplice, and maybe she can be identified.
Absolutely. That's something that maybe she can, maybe she was only aware he was robbing houses and didn't know he was actually killing people or raping them. So that's something that hopefully they do get to the bottom of and see if he was the same person that was witnessed with the female, and then, maybe that'll put some more puzzle pieces together.
In an article from heavy.com, it lists out some bullet points of this guy in the case. One of the things that they talk about is this very subject, whether or not he had a wife and children. And we know that the Golden State Killer was known to call and taunt the surviving victims after the attacks. And I didn't realize this, but according to the police, in one call, the victim said a woman and children could be heard in the background, leading to speculation that the suspect was married with kids. So we're talking about someone who might have done this in the living room while his wife and kids were in the kitchen or something.
Yeah, and that's a possibility. I know in one instance there's a call that was actually recorded where it sounded like a woman and children talking, but that actually turned out to be something in the background on a television show that was, being watched by the person that received the phone call. So, it's possible that there were women and children in some of the calls. I know at one of the crime scenes, the victim thought that he said Bonnie. Bonnie doesn't like it when I do this stuff. And she was very specific about the name Bonnie. Well, one thing I found today myself when I was searching was that this guy was engaged to a girl named Bonnie, that they had an announcement in the newspaper, and then they never went through with the marriage.
Wow.
Coincidence? Maybe not. Maybe
Probably not.
Maybe she was the motivation for this. Who knows?
But yeah, exactly. But it doesn't mean that she was with him. Doesn't mean she was his accomplice, but could have absolutely been part of the motivation.
Sure.
Haley in the chat room says, how long do you think he could have been on their radar, meaning law enforcement? And I think the answer is it can't be very long, right? Because they've had this guy's DNA for a long time, but they never had this positive match, right? So I know it's kind of difficult trying to piece how they got him together, but they couldn't have known about this guy very long, right?
Yeah, I think it was probably, if I had to guess, I'd say over the past few weeks. Again, I'm going to try and get some more clarification on that, but I think this is something that came along, not yesterday, but I think they've been working on it for some time now. But I think over the past week or so, they really zeroed in on him and got down to taking him down.
He was arrested in Citrus Heights, which is how far away from the Golden State Killer's stomping grounds? What I'm asking is, how long did he stay in that area?
Well, the Golden State Killer, when he was in Sacramento County, he was bouncing back and forth between Rancho Cordova, Sacramento, Carmichael, Citrus Heights. He was bouncing back and forth all over the place. And he attacked in Citrus Heights. So that entire county was, the eastern half of it at least wasn't off limits to him. He was bouncing around pretty good. So he lived in some of the areas where he, struck.
Do you think, all this attention lately on this case, your podcast, Michelle's book, I know there's a couple of documentaries about the case that have come out in the past year or so. Yeah, we have to imagine all this helped contribute to him being caught, right?
I think so. That's my gut feeling, is that, especially for younger people that are probably, 30 years old or less, might not have been that familiar with this case. And I think seeing this, seeing these shows, hearing about these different podcasts, these books, maybe inspired somebody to take a closer look and say, hey, that sounds like it could be my dad or my uncle or something like that. So I think having the attention that it's had over the past year and a half, 2 years has really, really helped the case to reach a bigger audience and maybe led to the lead that brought this guy down. Just
for some perspective here, right? This book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, like me and Lance were talking about it earlier, like this book was already kind of the modern day In Cold Blood, but for God's sake, this makes it like an epic, legendary book at this point.
Oh yeah, it's the timing is pretty good for it to come out, and then you have the drama of the author not being around to see its conclusion and the case being solved. So it's definitely going to add some unique perspective to the book.
We were just talking about how whether or not the attention from your podcast, the book, just the renewed attention that this case has, whether that contributed to a higher focus and his arrest. We know by reading the book that Michelle had direct contact with police, and they worked together, and they had a good relationship. And just because of that, the book's made. Your podcast is out there. You're going to Crime Con. I don't know I don't really have much of a point other than it's so exciting to be in this realm that you can, wake up in the morning and you have this news. And I'm just excited for you for doing the podcast and having some fruits of your labor be right there. Paul Haynes, who was one of the contributors to finishing Michelle's book, Billy Jensen, who was one of the contributors to finishing her book, and Patton Oswalt, her husband, who has just been supporting her book since her death. And it's just fucking amazing that we can be in this in this world where we dropped everything today, and 40 years of terror has been arrested.
Yeah, there was nothing else we could have talked about today. Like, we had planned to talk about a few other cases today on this live show. We had planned this live show, but we realized very quickly this morning, probably before the 7 o'clock hour this morning, that we couldn't talk about anything but this.
Right.
Today. So yeah, congratulations, Mike. This is an amazing day. I know this is going to be a day that you'll remember forever, and just want to say congratulations on all the work you've done, and really appreciate you helping put this motherfucker to bed.
I definitely appreciate you guys having me on and helping spread the word about the case, and it's good to get some good news dealing with so much shitty cases and murders and missing people, and I know you guys feel it doing the work you do. So every once in a while to get some good news it definitely makes you feel good.
Seriously, yeah. I cannot wait to hear about this guy and find out more of these details, and before they do whatever they're going to do to him in prison, however that pans out, we need to know what his brain's like.
Yep, and I think they're tearing apart his house as we speak, and I read that he's lived there for 2 decades, so I hope a lot of fruitful information is uncovered.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us, Mike. We'll let you go now. I know you're exhausted. Been up most of the night dealing with this. So again, congratulations! What amazing news this morning. So this is pretty awesome. So congrats, and we'll see you next week at CrimeCon, Mike.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you there.
All right, thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Take care.
All right.
Sarah, you're awesome.
Sarah Turney in the in the Facebook Live. Sarah Turney. If you guys have not listened to the podcast Missing Alyssa, that is a must listen. It is about Sarah Turney's sister, Alyssa Turney, who went missing in 2001.
And so we had a little breaking news with that today. Today was Missing Alyssa's episode release featuring Michael Turney. So if anyone hasn't listened to that yet, it is truly fascinating.
Yeah. She finally got him to talk. He's broken his silence.
Yeah.
Can't recommend this podcast anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And
But,
so the press conference is about to happen. So just to let you know, we're going to go to it at some point in the next few minutes. Go ahead, Lance. What were you going to say?
I want to talk about the coincidences that happened all surrounding her the Golden State Killer's capture.
Yeah.
The fact that Billy Jensen, Patton Oswalt, Paul Haynes, Gillian Flynn, who did the wonderful reading of the book, they were all gathered. The family, the people who contributed to the book, they were all gathered last night at an event for the book, and they got the news together this morning.
Yeah, it was a pretty amazing picture that was out there last night of Billy, Paul, who helped finish the book, and Patton Oswalt and Gillian Flynn, who wrote the foreword and read the audiobook. Pretty cool, just together coincidentally. Right now, I just want to play you, before this press conference starts, I just want to play you this video from Patton Oswalt, Michelle's husband, who Instagrammed a little bit of his feelings.
I'm flying to New York right now from Chicago. This is insane. It looks like they've caught the East Area Rapist, and if that's true, they've caught the Golden State Killer. So, I think you got him, Michelle.